Hi, it's taken me a little bit of time to work up to this, but my name's Stephen. This is my channel. If you haven't seen me before, I'm going to go through the details of when I was very ill. It's a horrific story, so stay tuned if you want to hear the dangers, because it really is mind-blowing what can happen to you. I started drinking when I was 15, and it wasn't a regular thing. I like the taste. My parents made home-brewed lager. All I drank was lager and beers and Guinnesses. I never drank any wines or spirits. I had a good career in London in law enforcement, because I brought up in a Northumberland village, but I like the idea of the bright lights. Eventually worked in the West End, which was great. I was on an underground link. Didn't have to drive, so I could drink whenever I wanted, really, after the shift. And my days off were in Epping, which was a lovely place to live. Lots of pubs. And I drank what I considered a reasonable amount. A normal amount, actually. But it started to catch up with me when I was a little bit older and a bit tired, and the usual things happened, Partner said he must get the doctors, try and get off the drink. I didn't want to. I was enjoying my life. I thought the drink was part of it, and this, that, and the other. And so time went on. Had a family down there. Retired from that. I was drinking all the time, though. Still drinking this lager, but it got stronger and stronger. Types went from 3.5% up to the 5-6% pills type lagers to get the same sort of effect. I never got into any trouble or anything. I never drunk and drive. I was quite a happy, sort of go-lucky drinker. I never thought I had a problem. Nobody brought it to my attention. However, I did have an 8-year spell off it until 2014. And for some unknown reason, I decided that I could control the alcohol, and I started to drink again. So from 2014 to 2015, I drank steady amounts of lager again. And then I went to the doctors, and I'd heard that you can get this diazepam, which I had previously, to try and get you off alcohol, and they wouldn't prescribe it. So I went downhill, basically, and I drank until 2019. I started to feel really unwell. I lost a lot of weight, this huge stomach, which later turned out to be fluid, which the liver couldn't deal with. And one of the guys I used to drink with, by that time I was looking terrible. I lost a lot of weight. And he said, "You look really ill." So I looked at myself in the mirror and I thought, this is not the real you. You look absolutely dreadful. He said, "I've been to doctors." So I said, "Well, I have, but they haven't really prescribed me anything. They just told me to go to these, addiction support meetings and such like, which I didn't really find any good." So I kept on drinking. And I got to the stage where somebody said, "You've got this huge stomach, you've got this umbilical hernia that started to appear." By that stage, I was so weak and so ill that I just kept on self-medicating with the booze. So in October 2019, I decided to basically ring 999. I packed a bag, and it was February 2019, October. I packed a bag, rang 999, and blue light ambulance turned up. The crew got there. 2 paramedics, both male. One said the other, "This guy's really ill, got him to hospital," obviously. Left the flat, locked it up, switched everything off. I went to a major hospital in Newcastle, where they diagnosed me with this ascites fluid and such like, and liver problems. And I felt a bit better after a couple of days. That's obviously, they'd given me something, I think, to withdraw. And they started to drain this fluid off. And they took about 25 litres of fluid. It's called ascites fluid. So the consultant came in and said, "You're seriously ill. You've got this fluid and you've got spontaneous bacterial peritonitis." So I was obviously shocked by the fact that I was seriously ill, so I got in touch with my family. And I spent about 2 or 3 weeks, I think about 3 weeks in hospital. And then I was discharged for a couple of weeks and had to return to a liver hospital. Well, it's an alcohol-related hospital, really, called the Freeman Hospital in Newcastle. Went back there for another appointment. My daughter actually told her from Manchester to take me, and I was admitted there again to take off this fluid. Now, the doctor who was going to do the fluid said, we've done a blood test on you, and everything's fine apart from one thing, which is sodium, which is quite low. I didn't really take much notice. I said, well, you're going to do the drain anyway. So yeah, we'll do the drain. Did the drain about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It took till about 10 o'clock. It takes 6 hours to drain this fluid off. They put the needle right into your abdomen, and then they drain the fluid off slowly. And again, there was about 20 litres. So I had that done, and a few hours later, I felt really, really poorly, and I said, can you get the doctor? I said this to the nurse, can you get the doctor? And she said, well, there's only one doctor on duty tonight. I thought, oh, that's no use. Must have been on call or something. Anyway, I started to sort of slur my words a bit, and I was sort of a bit detached from everything. So anyway, next thing I woke up and there was 3 or 4 doctors around me from a different unit, from intensive care. So they rushed me down there, 4 o'clock in the morning by this time, and this guy put this needle right down here into my neck. Apparently it was to get the sodium level up again. But I've never been in intensive care than when I was on duty in the other job I did. But as a patient, it's frightening. I was in intensive care for 2 or 3 days, and then they put me onto another ward, and then they said, this is a serious issue. You have to be under the care of the hospitals for a while, which I thought was going to happen. But every time I saw a doctor, things seemed to be getting worse. However, I just started to eat a little bit, and I was discharged just 2 or 3 weeks later. But another month went past, and then COVID sort of kicked in then. And again, I had this fluid build-up. I found it hard to walk, and I'd lost all the strength in my legs, very malnourished, all that sort of thing. So I was taking it again. This hernia was becoming a massive problem. It was like the size of a tennis ball by now, because the fluid has got to have somewhere to go, and your belly button, as it were, umbilical area is quite a thin sort of skin. So there was debate about how to deal with that, but they didn't want to deal with that because it would have caused problems and put too much pressure on my heart, my liver, and all that sort of thing. So they decided to do a procedure on my liver to try and reduce the ascites fluid. Apparently it works for most people, but it didn't work for me in the first attempt. I still had this hernia at the time, but they thought because they'd done this thing with the liver, it was going to reduce the fluid, but it didn't. So I was living with elderly parents, but I couldn't take care of myself. So one day, this umbilical hernia decided to leak blood, which is actually ascites fluid, which is very dangerous. A lot of people who leak this fluid will die. Again, 999 in the hospital. And they put some sort of dressing on it. It did stop actually for some reason. Anyway, I had another appointment 2 or 3 days later. They took me in again, did some more drains, did some more tests, and this was going on and on and on. So every 2 or 3 weeks, I was going to go into the hospital to have this drain done. My life got unbearable. I was trapped in the house. I couldn't get out. I was getting a wheelchair from the door to the driveway to get in patient transport ambulance at 6 o'clock in the morning. And actually Google at one point how to kill yourself. It got that bad. So I was starting to Google all the symptoms of this and the other. How long would I live, and would things improve and all that. And I got really, really down, really depressed, anxious, and I didn't think life was worth living, to be fair. Anyway, they decided to do this other procedure, and it worked miraculously. About early 2021, and say January, February, I felt a little bit of my birthday in February, and I felt slightly better. I was still only about 9-10 stone. I'm 6'3", so it's a hell of a lot of loss of weight. I wasn't eating properly, but I'd never been out of the house for a couple of years, to be fair. It was just house to hospital. That's as far as I went. You can imagine what the hospitals were like during COVID, trying to get treatment and such like. Anyway, they managed to get rid of the hernia, the ascites fluid started to disappear. I was eating a very clean diet, just plant-based really. No added salt, nothing like that. Lots of fluids. I couldn't sleep very well. I was so worried and so stressed by it all. Middle-aged man, I thought I'm going to die, which is what I've been told. I had a 50% chance of living. So imagine all of that on top of having to be with my elderly parents. My daughter was in Manchester. The stress levels were off the scale, really. However, I managed to speak to this consultant who said, just push yourself each day, try and do a little bit more, try and get off for a walk. I mean, a walk to me then was to stand up for 10 minutes because I couldn't stand up. My legs were so weak, I'd lost so much muscle. I was what they call deconditioned. So I managed to get out one day and felt a bit lightheaded and a bit dizzy, but I managed to walk about 10 yards. I thought, I've done that 10 yards, can I get back? I walked back and I felt terrible, really dizzy. I thought, well, I've done that. Let's just work on that every day and get, another 10 yards, another 10 yards. And I managed to do that a little bit. By about April, May 2021, I was a little bit better. And I asked my daughter to take me to a hotel just up in the Northumberland coast. She said, leave me for a couple of days. I need to get out of the house. I need to be somewhere else and to see if I can cope on my own. Which I did. And I went back to my parents. And sadly, my dad passed away in July of 2021. Huge shock, and I still wasn't well. So obviously I had my mother there, and I just had to be strong for her. So I started walking a little bit more. I had the funeral and all that sort of thing. Relatives came, the usual thing at a funeral. Very sad occasion, but I thought I've got to beat this. And as time went on, I was seeing the consultants then about once every 2 months. He said, oh, the blood tests are coming a little bit better. You put on a bit of weight, all this sort of thing. And I thought, oh, that's good. Obviously, no drink. So another few months rolled by, then they put me on sort of 3 monthly visits. So I was doing so well. Still doing a bit of exercise. I moved back to my own apartment at the end of 2021. Which is a total mess. It's been empty for a couple of years. There's all sorts of things going on in there. Bath had collapsed, and I had to have that completely gutted and redone. That wasn't a problem. I saved so much money by not going out and not being in the pub. Financially, it was the best I've ever been. However, got back in there, started to get a little bit more independent again. I didn't have a car, couldn't drive at that point. And then I started to try and do a little bit more exercise. I was still really, really ill though, and still seeing the GP and regular appointments. And then I just got better and better and better with a positive attitude. I think it was more than anything. But what I'm trying to get across here is I nearly died, and I didn't drink bottles of vodka. I didn't drink bottles of whiskey. I wasn't taking drugs. I'd never smoked. And they said that probably saves your life. The fact that I was very fit when I was young, and one of the consultants said the damage is done when you're young, but your liver will repair if you stay off the alcohol. Now, 6 months ago, I spoke to the consultant. So you basically back to full health. You can live a normal life. And I thought, that's amazing. How have I done this? He said, because you've done what we told you to do. So as a matter of interest, how many people who've been through what I've been through, which is 2 years in hospital, will go back out and drink again? He said it's staggeringly high, the figure. He said there's 100 people who need help. 10 will ask for help, and only 1 will be sober for life. It's incredible, isn't it? So you can go through all of this trauma, all of this stress, near-death situations, be in intensive care, and the power of addiction will take you back on the drink. So it's a bit of a grim story that. There's more details which I haven't got time to go into. But it's a terrible, terrible drug. Be bloody careful of it. And if you can get off for one day, 1 hour, I couldn't stop for 1 hour, one day at a time, and try and come off it and get sober. I'm here to help, ultimately to save people's lives. because I lost people in the hospital. I got to know who died very soon after being discharged because they'd gone straight to the pub. One guy who was having his fluid drained off discharged himself, was picked up by his mate, went to a pub, and he died the next week. So I texted him, and it was his wife who answered the text and said, he's died. So a bit of a warning there, isn't it? It can affect us all, and alcohol has no boundaries, takes no prisoners, so to speak. And if you would like to check out the channel, please do. I'm just giving this out tonight. It's been an emotional thing to tell people that you nearly died and your family were told you were going to die. However, I've recovered. I live a good life now. Got a lovely, beautiful partner. Back driving again, being on holiday, exercising again, and life's wonderful. Sober life is much better. What I'm trying to say. The dangers are massive, and trying to avoid them. The only way you're going to avoid them is by not just getting sober, but staying sober. And you can build on that. Every day will be a better day. Okay? If you've got anything that you want to say to me, any questions you've got, drop a line in the comments box and subscribe if you like the channel and get notifications, all that sort of thing. Because I've got a lot of videos to come out because I've got 40 years of experience of this. Some fun times, but mainly bad times. I look at alcohol now or drinking as short-term gain, very, very long-term pain, and ultimately an early death. I will say good night.